aren't real illness, right? That is another big myth. The fact is, similar to physical health, right? Mental health is almost very similar, right? It could affect anybody, everybody, doesn't discriminate, right? It's very important to understand the myth itself, right? And people talk about, some of people have said, no, I am, I don't think I will get affected by mental health. I've seen people making statements. I probably believed in that before, right? Only when I lost my father, I knew how you could actually, you know, get affected, right? It becomes very hard, right? You're pushed to a place where you don't see any light out of it, right? So what I'm trying to say is, I'm not trying to scare anybody here. I'm trying to prepare all of us in terms of, see, stress is inevitable, right? But we all can learn coping mechanisms to how to deal with it, right? So it's very important, right? In terms of, some people think bad parenting can cause, right? Because, there are a lot of times in movies we have seen, right? Oh, somebody went through a lot of trauma during their childhood days, and that is why they are behaving certain way, right? Again, when it comes to stress, there are a lot of factors which affect us, right? It is about our physiological or other, related matters in our own physical body, including our environment where we grow, who are our friends or where we go. All of that could affect. It's just not one factor we can touch upon. There could be a lot of things. Or finally, how resilient are you? Right? How quickly can you bounce back as an individual? Because a same stressful event in this room, all of us will react very differently. Right? Today, for me to stand here and speak, I enjoy this. Somebody else would be going through hell, right? So some stressful events people thrive, some stressful events people don't, right? It's absolutely okay to understand that and make sure that, it's what I can do about it, right? So this is also something we see in movies, right? Sorry, I don't think people in the back can read it, right? So people with mental illness are violent and dangerous, right? Have you all not seen this in movie? And most of our knowledge about mental health comes from movie, unfortunately. And it is all predicted very incorrectly for all their own reasons, right? What was that one movie? Love You Zindagi, or whatever. Shah Rukh Khan is a psychologist, right? Is that movie right? Dear Zindagi, right? So they predict things very incorrectly also, and people with no knowledge will automatically start believing that is how it is all done, unfortunately, right? So, in fact, I would say the other way around, right? People with mental illnesses are probably falling prey to violence than the other way around, right? They're not violent. It's just that they are going through some challenges and seeking help, right? But then we start believing that, they could be very violent as well, right? And then the other aspect is people don't recover from mental illnesses, right? Again, there could be some aspects of mental illness where we need to be supported throughout our life. And that is very common in physical health. How many of us have, what we call it in the physical health very conveniently, lifestyle diseases, which is basically diabetes, hypertension, cholesterol, right? They don't, in fact, we are so wonderful that we have created a very positive name. Oh, I have a lifestyle disease. Oh, okay, all right. Which means I need to take medication throughout my life. I need to make some diet-related changes, but I can be okay. I can lead a normal life, right? That's exactly what happens in mental health as well, right? You can be supported through medications, through therapy or whatever form, and live a very normal life, right? And again, this is another big myth. In fact, the other way around, I would say the same thing other way around. People who experience mental illness are weak. In fact, they are the one who become very strong and become very resilient over a period of time, right? But that's what the belief is, right? Again, this is another sweet one, right? People who have experienced mental illness can't work. Again, going back to the same logic, my physical health doesn't limit me to do whatever I need to do with the right kind of support. Similarly, people going through mental challenges can also perform the same way or better way by getting all the right support. Right? So it's very important to break these myths, right? And finally, children can't have a mental illness like depression, only adults can, right? This is also a myth, because mental health affects everybody. irrespective of any age, right? In fact, today the awareness on this is much higher, I would say, because most of the parents here who have small children, all of you know, most of the schools your kids are studying have a psychologist, right? They are talking about, things like ADHD, right? A lot of, deficiency in learning. All of that is being found today, thanks to the innovation and whatnot, right? So a lot of things affects kids very early also, right? There was a wonderful movie. I think there was a kid who had learning disability. Yeah, so that's a wonderful movie which talks Tare Zameen Par, right? That talks about it. So it's very evident that kids can also have challenges, right? And I have had in my own experience small kids going through depression, being anxious. They're all 6, 7 years old, 10 years old. They are going through these challenges. So it could affect everybody. It doesn't limit that only adults can go through certain mental health challenges. Okay, so that quickly we talked about that. So finally, I want to end this topic, right? This section of the topic saying that similar to physical health, people going through mental challenge can lead a very normal life, right? Again, the similar example of lifestyle diseases. Similarly, we can all live a very normal life with the support of medications, with the support of family members, with the support of our colleagues, right? And of course, therapy, all of that, with all the support, we can lead a very normal life. That's good news, right? So there's no more reason for us to discriminate or differentiate mental health and physical health. Because everything is, we've been, in the last 30 minutes, we've been talking about, it's almost similar, right? So that is what I want to create, that notion of normalizing physical health, mental is what we are trying to create here. And you see for every aspect when you're talking about, that kind of makes sense to us. Okay. All right. So what can I do to help, right? We'll quickly talk about that, and then we'll finally jump into the section where what are some of the takeaways for me, right? How are you doing on time, by the way? Oh, okay. All right. Sorry. Obviously, it's been very interactive and engaged sessions, going a little longer than I thought, but we'll try and cover up as quickly as possible. Okay. So as a colleague, as a manager, right, as a friend, or even in a family, right? And in fact, one of the things I talked about it, whatever we're discussing today doesn't apply only to workplace. It could be applying outside workplace also, right? What can I do, right? How can I create that environment which showcases that, we are all supporting them, right? The most important is, creating a sense of safety for somebody, right? Because the most important aspect people go through is they don't feel safe in this environment because they are afraid of being labeled, being judged and whatnot, right? So I don't have that comfort feeling of feeling safe, right? So even in a counseling session, the most important aspect, what a counselor will talk about is confidentiality, creating that safe environment, that individual. All of that is what we discuss about. So that is very, very important in having this conversation with somebody who's going through some challenge. The next is, a lot of us, don't even attempt to understand what a person is going through, right? Because our listening capabilities have gone out of the window, unfortunately, right? So in this conversation, it's very important to put that effort in terms of trying to understand the individual, what challenge they're going through, right? And of course, trust is what I talked about, right? When we create trust, the safety and all those aspects fall in place, right? And compassion is another important aspect in this whole conversation. I will talk about compassion a little later. I'll tell you what compassion is, what self-compassion is. But that is also something very, very important in these conversations. And finally, offering, unconditional support for somebody, right? I'm not doing it because I just have to do it, he's my colleague. No, I want to really help my colleague, somebody important to me. Or as a manager, I want to really support somebody, who's going through this challenge, right? So those are the important support conversations we can create, right? And this is, again, unfortunately, people in the last probably may not be able to see it. I don't want to read everything because it'll take a lot of time. But this is what generally, a supportive conversation can look like in our everyday life, right? If you're a professional in a professional environment, what it could look like, right? Or in a personal situation, what it could look like, right? And of course, on a social conversation, what it could look like, right? So these are some of the conversations we all can have. Just an example of what the supportive conversations, what we could all have, right? So Rashmi, what I'll do is I'll maybe give you a copy of this presentation for people to have it, go through it later, because some of these aspects people in the last few rows cannot read. Okay, and again, here is another quick checkpoint. We'll run through it very quickly. Keeping time in mind, right? So I want all of you to look at these statements and kind of tell me which is a supportive conversation, which is not a supportive conversation. Okay? All right? So we'll raise hands if it's supportive. If it's not, we won't raise your hands. Is that okay? Yes. All right. You are always so negative. All right. Nobody's raising hand. Good. It's all in your head. No, it's not supportive. Okay. All right. Two of you raised hands. It's okay. How can I help you? All right. It's a supportive conversation. Excellent. Don't start talking about the same thing again. It's not a supportive conversation. Okay. I'm here to listen to you. Oh, excellent. All right. Why do you always complain? All right. You aren't a burden. Yeah, that's a supportive statement. At least you have a job. Okay, it's not a supportive statement. Take as long as you need. All right, supportive statement. There is nothing wrong with you. All right, you all got tricked. Yeah, it's not a supportive statement. Yeah. I will help you get through this. Yeah, it's a supportive statement. And finally, stop feeling sorry for yourself. Yeah, it's not a supportive statement. No. Yeah. Yeah. So anyway, it was just a quick checkpoint so that we know what we are learning as well. Supporting actions, again, these are all very important because being available is most critical because we all believe none of us have enough time, right? We are all in some mad rush, and nobody reaches anywhere on time anyways, but then that's a different story. But then, that is how we all, and that's true for most of us, right? We don't have time, right? So being available for somebody who's going through some challenges is something most important you can do, right? The other thing people are generally afraid, I think this is probably on the top of the chart, is why they don't want to discuss is they're afraid that this will turn into a gossip session, right? I'm leaning my shoulder to him, he tells everything, the next moment I go there, hey, listen, what happened to him? Very juicy, right? So that is what a lot of people are aware or believe that's what is happening, right? And some of us are not great in offering direct support. So we can obviously offer non-verbal support, especially in the workplace, right? I could be part of a team. I'm not the right person to talk to him, but then I can say, hey, I can share some of your workload. I can do this for you. I can do that for you. So not everybody has to do verbal support. Non-verbal support is also very important. And this is most important. Educating oneself on these matters is very important so that you can be a better resource to support others. Right? So there's a constant education we need to do for ourselves, right? Including this session today is something very, very important for all of us. And being an advocate of mental health is also very important, right? And that is what I'm trying to achieve through this session so that I can create a lot more advocates like me who are going to talk about mental health in a very positive way in the long run, right? Okay. So conversations, again, I'll quickly run through it. If you're having a conversation as a manager or as a colleague with somebody who's going through some challenge, the most important is set time with no distractions because today our lives are filled with distractions, right? Whether it is MS Teams or an email or a WhatsApp, right? So these are conversations that are very important. It should have given me a warning, it didn't. So what we can do as a colleague, as a manager is at least show them this, that your challenge or your problem is very important to me as well. So I am willing to set aside that 15, 20, 30, because these conversations don't go for hours together. These are very short and crisp. It's not that I want to talk about my challenges for days together, right? So very crisp, short, 15, 20, 30-minute conversation. Can I plan to go without any distractions and send a signal to somebody saying that, hey, I'm here to only for you. Your mental health is equally important to me as well, right? So that is what is very important as a colleague, as a manager, right? The other thing is we generally do the opposite of this, right? We generally don't let people share, right? In a normal conversation, what happens is somebody is having a conversation, oh, tell me more, what happened? What happened? Oh, all these questions come in, right? So this is a conversation where you're not asking them to share because the moment you push them for more information, they'll shut themselves off, right? So these are situations where you're letting them share at their own pace, at their own convenience, whatever they want to share, right? And finally, the other thing we do very normally is diagnosing and second guessing every aspect of it. Somebody says something, yeah, I know exactly what you're going through. I've been it, my sister went through it, my colleague went through it, somebody in the office I know, right? But I got to tell you, I have, after I went through my, again, I'm relating a lot of this to my example of losing my father, right? That is not the same, right? Everybody goes through very different way of reacting to some stressful situation in their life, right? So we just cannot. As I said, all of us will react and respond very differently to a stressful situation in this room, right? So we can't relate to that and say, I know exactly what you're going through, right? It's just about, being there, nodding your head, supporting them, and all of that, asking open-ended questions. Hey, tell me, how can I support you? Is there something you want me to help you with? Can I take some of your workload? Or all of that is what we can support in a conversation with. And finally, right, the whole aspect of paraphrasing is very important, right? We call it listen and repeat, right? I'm not sure how many are familiar with this term called paraphrasing, which basically means you listen and you repeat in your own words, right? It's very common in a lot of our important meetings, right? We're talking to a customer, talking to a vendor, or especially in multicultural environment, right? We want to make sure that we have understood exactly what the customer or the client or our colleagues are saying. We use this, methodology, and this is very commonly used in the psychological space in conversations, especially in therapy, counseling sessions, because the last thing you want to do is walk away from that room misunderstanding that individual, right? So we do what we call as listen and repeat, right? So if somebody says something, you summarize in your own words. You don't have to repeat word to word, but you summarize in your own words, right? So this could happen in an important meeting where you're making a decision for some products or decisions for something else, right? So the same logic applies, and this very commonly practiced by all psychologists, counselors, doctors in the medical field, right? Very common, right? So there are two things, we are accomplishing by doing this. One is we are 100% understanding exactly what the individual is saying, right? The second thing what we're doing is we're also sending a signal that I am fully here with you and listening to you, right? When was the last time you experienced that? Somebody undivided attention to you was listening to you. Maybe no, right? We don't listen, right? In meetings, I'll tell you, for example, 4 of us are sitting in a meeting, somebody is talking about some, important things to be done, and one of the other person has got a great idea, and they think that is the best idea in the mankind, and then after a while they think, oh my God, I can't even wait, I'll forget. So I had to interject, I have to cut him off and then, make that idea, that is what we do today, because we don't listen at all. Right? So if you have to repeat, you will have to listen. Can you repeat unless you listen? Absolutely not, right? So this is a great methodology we use, listen and repeat, called paraphrasing, which is very, very important. So I want you to think about how can I incorporate this in my day-to-day work, right? Even in small meetings, right? All of that is something I want you to think about, right? The SCARE model, again, this is very similar to what I was talking about. All of this is what we generally do in terms of connecting, acknowledging or referring somebody to saying that, hey, why don't you go and, speak to a counselor. All of that is what is part of the CARE model. We'll quickly jump into the last section. Apologies on running a little late. So we'll try and finish. This is the most important aspect I want to talk about. Okay. De-stressing techniques, right? We all have our own techniques to de-stress, right? Everybody does various things. Obviously, I would love to have heard from all of you as to what ways you all do. But maybe we'll do it, right? Maybe 2-3 people can talk about what all you do to de-stress. Breathing, okay? Some physical activity. Meditation, okay? Eating a chocolate, okay? Oh, some people enjoy cleaning. Great, okay? That's absolutely right. Listening to music. Watching movies, yeah. Thanks to all the Netflix and Prime, we get a lot of those things as well. Absolutely, all of these are de-stressing techniques, right? So the beauty about de-stressing techniques is not one size fits all. What works for me, maybe not for somebody else. In fact, I had an ex-colleague, she used to say whenever she gets stressed, she used to go and sleep. It's opposite for me. If I'm stressed out, I just cannot sleep, right? So the techniques might vary, but then all of them work for everybody in a very different way, right? We talked about exercise. We talked about eating healthy is very, very important, right? We don't realize how important eating healthy is. Yes, sir.
Is there any food that can affect, that can help in tracing out, researching oneself?
So, generally they say, rich, nutritious food and all of that is very important. For example, I have read a few places where they talk about mushroom as one of them, which is almost like an antidepressant, right? So there are certain foods can help, but I don't want to mislead anybody by giving any name here. Obviously, you can do a little bit of research to see what food are. Generally, good diet is good, as simple as that, right? Nutritious food is always good. Yeah. Sleep, right? We talked about insomnia earlier in the session, right? Sleep is very important. And I think one aspect of a physical body where we don't give full credit is sleep. In fact, we abuse sleep, right? And then unfortunately, there's no shelf life for sleep. It's not like I didn't sleep for 2 nights, third night I can catch up, right? Whatever gone is gone, right? So, and thanks to all this Netflix and all of that, right? And how many times we all have started, even a weekday, I will tell you, 10 or 10:30 I start 8 episodes only. Tack, next. Oh, interesting. No, I can't stop here, right? 4:30 in the morning, I'm winding up. Can you imagine how your next day is going to be? In the office, you'll be yawning, no focus, tired. Yeah. Yeah. Right. Everybody asking, hey, what's wrong with you? Right. Obviously, you can't say, no, I was watching till 4:30. No, I'm generally tired. Some excuse we'll give, right? So sleep is very important because it does a lot of things for us, right? On a physical side, there are a lot of millions of cells in our body, right? They all get damaged on a daily basis, right? So when we sleep, those cells get repaired and replaced. One, right? The other thing which happens is your brain, when you sleep, so just imagine you have a physical folder, okay? You pull the folder, then you arrange all the files, correct? We all do that? Today mostly is digital, you have folders and you put all. So that is what happens when we sleep inside our brain. It is breaking down every memory, every thought, everything, whatever we went through in particular folder, right? So that next time when you are in a situation, it will recall that, right? If I say hill station, all of you will recall some memory of yours, recent visit to a hill station. That is what that action is, right? So all of that rearranging that files happen in our brain when you're sleeping, right? So there is cognitive, there is physical, actions happening when we sleep. And that's why it is very important for us to get the right amount of sleep, which is 7 to 8 hours, okay? Again, avoiding alcohol, drinking in moderation, all of that is very important to de-stress. Yes, sir? Exercise. Okay, so there's a question on any particular exercise I can do, right? Because we talk about exercise in a way there. So the most common, simple exercise you can do is walk. Walking is more than enough, right? Today there are a lot of studies to talk about 10,000 steps and whatnot, right? Doesn't matter. Like if you have to do 10,000 steps, you have to walk for 1.5 hours. Even if you can start with 15 minutes, 30 minutes, it's great. Right? Walking is the most simplest. If you can go to gym, you can do yoga, other things, great. Add it to it. But then at basic, walking is very important.
So this list is correct, the last four?
Sorry, sir. By mistake, I think I put it there.
Some people are talking about it just as buster.
Yeah. So most of the time when we have a stressful situation, as a colleague will say, hey, chalo yaar, we'll put 2, we'll be fine, right? So smoking, drinking is all a short-term, effect we believe is a stress reliever, right? But it's only a distraction. It doesn't help.
Become habituated, so you have to take again and again.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. I can also see the moment alcohol slide has come, everybody is more active and participating in the session as well. Right? Had I known, I would have introduced this long time back in the slides. Right? Staying in the present moment, we'll talk about that also. That is something very important. Do you know how much time today we live in the future or in the past? That is what anxiety and depression, right? Anxiety is about the future, depression is about the past, right? So how much time do we live today in the future and the past? Do you all know?
I think presently nobody is living, only either talking about past or thinking about future.
Okay.
Current is finished.
Yeah. So, okay, I'll answer this question myself, right? 47% to be precise is the number where Today, as per the Harvard Medical School findings, 47% is the time where we live in the future and the past today. So almost half of our time we are awake, we are living in the future or in the past. Right? What is keeping us in the future and the past? Our thoughts. Right? So, okay. So staying in the present moment is great. We'll talk about why and how I can do that. And then connecting with others, right? We all talked about the whole social connection, which is what we're missing during COVID time. That is also a great aspect in terms of connect. And that's what we all do, right? That is what we're missing during COVID time, right? Connecting with our colleagues, friends, family, right? It is a big way to de-stress. Okay? This is the most important aspect, most simplest, but then most complex one also, because we talked about various aspects as to why we don't talk about the way we feel, right? Because people will look at very differently. If I say that this is how you feel, like, what's wrong with you, man? That's how we'll brush them off, right? But feelings are very important, because feelings, the one we talked about how it affects your behavior. It's a vicious circle. Your thoughts, your feelings, your behavior is a vicious circle. One affects the other, right? So that is also important. Keeping a positive outlook, right? Because most of us are used to this way of looking at things, half glass empty attitude, right? Changing that is very important. Right? I don't want people to assume that, somebody has that attitude, can't change. I got to tell you, all of us can change, right? And that's generally weaved in our, behavior as well, right? Did you know when was the last pandemic we all went through before COVID? 100 years back, 1919 to 1921, Spanish flu. It took more than 50 million lives, right? Human beings are resilient, right? We bounced back. We kept a very positive attitude towards life, and then we have come a long way, right? That is what we all do, right? So it's very important to understand that aspect as well. Taking a break, unwinding is also very important, and that's why, we all have our own little vacation time, time off from, taking from work and whatnot, right? Self-compassion. I was talking about compassion earlier, right? It's very important to practice this. And by the way, self-compassion is a scientifically proven methodology. Okay, so let's quickly talk about what is compassion. Anybody wants to try? It's very simple. Compassion is nothing but showing love, concern for others, especially the people who we care about, loved ones, right? That is what is compassion is, right? We all do that. We are, as human beings, it's an innate quality in human beings to be compassionate. We don't wish bad things for others, right? Say, for example, you had a bad day, right? You go to Mr. Bhanu and say, hey, listen, you won't even, believe the kind of day I went through, right? So what will be Bhanu's immediate response? You'll feel bad for him. You'll say, oh my God, sorry to hear. It's one of those days, don't worry. I'm sure tomorrow will be much better day. That is the normal conversation. You're not expecting Bhanu to say, yeah, I was waiting for that day to happen. This is what you deserve. We won't say that, right? Because we are generally very compassionate, right? But then, so what is self-compassion now? Showing the same love and concern to ourselves when we are going through difficult times.
I've got a question.
Yes.
So there's a very thin line between self-compassion and narcissism,
Okay.
right? So how does one stay, away from being a narcissist?
I don't know the answer to that question. I'll be very honest, but we will discuss this post the session. I would also love to explore the answer on that, right? Yes, sir.
What I feel regarding the de-stress technique and generally I do that. Whenever a person is stressed,
Mm-hmm.
he should do the thing which he is having you can say like a hobby. That is the most beautiful way to de-stress yourself. If you love gardening, do that. If you love cooking, do that.
Yes.
That
Yes.
kind of thing I think it will help.
No, it's a wonderful answer. It's basically talking about when you're in a stressful situation, just do whatever you love to do, whether it's a hobby or whatever you pursue. That will be the best way to de-stress, and that is one of the good answers as well. It's absolutely right. I fully agree. And that is all we end up doing most of the time anyways, right? I love to watch some comedy shows. I want to do this. I want to go out, take a walk. All of this I enjoy doing. I would end up doing those things, right? So quickly coming back to self-compassion, right? So self-compassion is nothing but the showing the same love, concern to yourself at the time of difficulty. That's what we're talking about here. So it's so easy for us to be compassionate to others when they are going through challenges, right? But instead of practicing self-compassion, we do the opposite to ourselves. We are the most critic of ourselves, right? And by the way, talking about, do you know who do you talk to the most? Yourself. And that's what happens here between these 2 years, right? Oh, you're not good enough. You could have done better, right? And if you recall most of this chatter which goes in your inside your head, it's always negative. It's always negative, right? So that's why the practice of self-compassion is so important, that